had the lunch, and now we have a very interesting session. So let's move to that. I have a couple of announcements before we start the session. The question answer session, for the asking questions, you'll have to queue up in the back after the session is over. So that will be announced again when the question answer session will start. Second announcement is that you have to provide feedback once the session is over. And we really need your feedback because we want to improve next time. So we would really look forward for your feedback. And there are some prizes, gift vouchers for asking some interesting questions. So make sure that you ask some very interesting questions, and you'll be getting some gift vouchers for that as well. Now, to take this session forward, we have a very interesting session manager. So let's welcome our session manager for this session, Sanjay Jain.
Thanks, Nitesh. As Nitesh mentioned, this is a post-lunch session. We want to keep it live and interactive. So we have changed the program a little bit. The questions will be taken actually in between the session as well. But we will still expect, can you hear me? Okay, so we will be taking questions in between the session, but the format is the same. There's a mic. You do have to quickly move to the mic to get your questions in. Now, as we mentioned, we have excellent speakers, and to introduce them, let me call Sridhar Ranganathan, who's the product manager at InMobi. He's going to moderate the session, and Sridhar, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sridhar. I run Corp Dev at InMobi. I used to be running product until about a year ago. So we have a couple of very interesting panelists today. The first one is Pinkesh. Many of you might know Adaptive Marketing, the company that's working with a lot of corporates in the country to groom product leaders for tomorrow. Pinkesh has got excellent experience in running product management at VP levels across both enterprises and consumer startups and so on. He's been a veteran in the Valley. He came back 2.5 years ago, and he was talking about his Bangalore experience and how product management as a function has been evolving in the city and in the country and so on. So please welcome Pinkesh. Our second speaker is Chris Stauber. Chris is the VP of Product Management and Marketing at GT Nexus, probably one of those really interesting companies that you may not necessarily know much about. GT Nexus has a platform that connects big enterprises that do a lot of logistics, so shipping companies, container companies, and big retail companies that do a lot of shipment from one place to another and so on. So they build a platform on which the companies can track the movement of the goods from one place to another. And Chris has also been a veteran product manager from the Valley, over 20 odd years of experience. 30. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm a little bit sleepy after the lunch. So yeah. So please welcome Chris. So for today's session, I wanted to get a sense of the audience in this room. How many of you are product managers? Brilliant. How many of you are aspiring product managers? Okay. How many of you are CEOs of your company? Okay, a few. Great. So what we really wanted to do today was, listen to the practitioners and the veterans from the industry and really look at, what are the learnings we can take away from them in the course of, their own experience in working with various products and so on. So I'll give half a minute each to Chris and Pinkesh to talk a little bit about themselves, and immediately we'll jump into the topics. As Sanjay already mentioned, if you have questions, you can queue up at the back. We have budgeted for 50 minutes of time overall, including them discussing some topics and to field audience questions. We are running back-to-back on the time. Therefore, if you have questions, quickly rush to the back and make sure your questions being heard. If not offline, you can always meet with Pinkesh and Chris and get your questions clarified. Yeah. Sure. So over to you, Chris. Do you want to give a quick introduction of yourself?
Sure. And mic working?
Yeah?
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. The honor of being here to speak with you today. I wanted to give just a brief overview for what I've been doing in the product management space.
Is it mine?
One of us.
Okay, cool.
I think it's one of us for sure, so. No?
Okay. I'm a California native. I've worked 30 years in the software industry, and I've worked in ERP companies, CRM, and most recently supply chain logistics. I've worked for very small startup companies, and I've worked for very large ones like Siebel Systems that you may know. GT Nexus is about a GT Nexus is about a 13-year-old company, 650 people, and you know, we, as Sridhar said, we service transportation and logistics for some of the world's leading importers and exporters.
Pinkesh? Okay. So is it better there? Audible? No. So move it a little closer, perhaps. Any better? At the back? Wave if you can hear me. Okay, good. Good afternoon, everybody. I know we've had a very sumptuous lunch, but good afternoon, everybody. Okay, thank you. It's going to be a challenge right after lunch to keep everybody motivated and thinking, so we'll try our best. So I'm Pinkesh Shah. Last 15 years I've been in the Valley. Most recently I was the Global Vice President for Products, Product Management at McAfee Risk and Compliance Unit, now part of Intel. And before that I was with 3 startups, primarily being an engineering techie guy, turned into product management, perhaps more accidentally than of choice. So if you have time I can share some stories there as well. The passion for education was always there, but about 4 years ago, came to India for about 4 weeks. The CEO asked to set up a product management function in McAfee, India. And about 9 weeks later, about 812 resumes later, we could not hire a single product management guy. This was about 4.5 years ago. Things have changed since then. So went back, took some internal guys, shipped them back to US, got them groomed, and that's how we started product management. So the product management function and the difficulty in finding good, really good, real product managers, and we'll get into more detail as what we call as real versus what we're having on title, was a challenge, and so that was always a passion. So started an academy called Adaptive, where we focus more on product leadership, product management, and more recently we're setting up a B school. Think of it as a B school for techies. So we call it the Institute of Product Leadership. That's a quick background for me.
Okay, thanks, Pinkesh. Thanks, Chris. Yeah. Okay. I guess everybody hear me? Okay, cool. All right. So when we started discussing, how to make use of their time, and for a lot of us here who are product managers or practitioners or looking at doing something in the tech space, we came up with a few questions that are probably topmost on any of your minds if you're doing something related to product management. So let's just go to the first question, and I'll ask Chris, given that he's currently running a pretty significant product management team at GT Nexus, which is, how do you decide which features are the next set of features you want to roll out for the next release, right? Is it a question of, those few wow features you want to do? Is it features that are essentially table stakes for your market, or, that your angel investor or your Series A investor has said, look, you know what, I want this feature if you want me to, help you with raising the next round and so on. Or is it that feature is it that set of bugs that your best engineers are coming and saying, you know what, we have to fix these bugs if you want to, make a meaningful release and so on. So I'll start with Chris and ask him, how do you prioritize? What kind of features do you build for the next release? And what are those key learnings you've had in your journey?
So
one of the things that I think is true is that product managers have a very difficult task of balancing the requirements from all kinds of sources. As soon as you have your first customer, then that customer is going to ask or demand, in fact, that you do certain features. Now, your engineering organization may already know that they have foundation to lay and things that they need to build which may not be visible to customers. And so it's very important that good product management involves balancing things. And so in order to do correct balancing, the key thing is you need to understand what your end goal is. You know, so you want to make sure that you know where your product should be in the next 2 or 3 years, so that as you prioritize features and functions, that you're building up to that validation, right? So that's that end goal. And because you've got different requirements, whether it's the wow features or foundations or bug fixes or tech debt, you need to be careful that you make a balanced allocation of your resources, because too much in any one area is going to cause you to go off track. Too much of the wow feature, and you might end up with this like all sizzle and no meat kind of situation where you're not really providing meaningful value to your customers. Too much on foundation and infrastructure, and nobody cares because there's no sex and no appeal to your product. And so that balance is really, really key. And I guess the last point here that I'd make is that in order for you to do well, you want to make a plan and then track it so that you can see that you're making the progress and make adjustments as necessary.
Cool. So you talk about maintaining that fine balance. How does one acquire that over time? Pinkesh, do you want to add some points too?
So just echo everything that Chris mentioned here as well. Now, one thing that's very critical that at least, so I'll first share a learning that I had when our SVP of engineering, our CTO, walked up about 7 years ago. And I still remember the day when he said, look, Pinkesh, if everything is important, you know, nothing is. Right? So we always have this kind of minimum ship features. For those who are product managers, you probably realize there's some that you just have to do. Right? So sometimes we don't prioritize within that must-have feature. It's very important to understand that even in the must-have, assuming that you have limited resources, limited time, how would you further prioritize it down? So that's kind of very important. That's kind of still stuck with me. You know, if everything is important, nothing is. The most important thing that I believe that we've used both.
Pinkesh, then can we over-engineer something like that?
We certainly can. So this is actually a real picture from China.
Is it? And, I can count 8 people.
I think there's about 8.5. I think the half guy is in suspension mode, so he's not taking the seat. But this is, so kidding aside, this is exactly what our products actually look like to the end customer sometimes, because we believe that everything is important. We want to do more is better is the general phenomenon, and that's kind of, in my opinion, a lazy process of product management, right? It's a very lazy way to do it. Well, let's do it all, right? Why take the risk of discomforting somebody, of upsetting somebody potentially? To the other point that Chris mentioned, you know, the requirements come from multiple places, right? I mean, the engineering guys have ideas, sometimes good ones. We actually did ask the question, how many of you are from engineering here? Head of engineering, quality assurance, development, QA? Okay, good size. The support guys, believe it or not, we've had situations in McAfee where we've almost dedicated 50% of our bucket of resources, especially in a certain release, from support. Because the product was great, it was acquiring good customers, but the supportability of that product was just completely, you know, tanked in its version 6.5, 7. Because as you add more and more, this is exactly what happens. And the support guys, you can imagine, they have to support this bike, but they didn't have people, you know, jumping on it.
So you mean to say that kid is in the support bucket?
I hope somebody supports them, because he certainly looks like a very risky place to ride. So the requirements come from multiple places. I think the key thing is, first, who's your persona? For every release, you want to have a primary persona. And the persona could be an internal requirement. It could be a customer. Your persona could be a CFO who's about to sign a check for that B2B dashboard or a consumer app, where you might want to say, you know what, the users have all these requests, and we are not going to cater to that user. We're going to cater to the buyer for this particular release. Right? So it's a specific release plan that you also should try to use when you prioritize. Who are you trying to build and please in this particular output, in this particular release, right? So your primary persona is extremely important. And if somebody does not know why are we building and who's the one person who we want to please, you end up doing kind of more lazy prioritization where you try to please as many as you can, right? Now there are side effects, which is okay, but you always have to have one primary persona, in my opinion. Is there a clicker somewhere? Yeah. You want to maybe, yeah? So we talked about this. And the final point, is again, going back to have a clear definition of why are you doing this particular module or release, whether it's a 7-week window that you release, whether you're an online property that releases every 4 hours. Each of that is a unit of time, unit of work that you're releasing. Who are you trying to please in that unit of work? Extremely important for you to keep in mind when you prioritize.
Interesting point you make. So one of the questions that I keep thinking about is, there are people who use the product, and there are people who are responsible for buying the product.
Absolutely.
Right? In a consumer business, it's simple, because there's consumer who's using it, who's also buying it.
Yeah.
In the enterprise business, perhaps it's not as straightforward.
Yeah.
So how do you determine whom to go after? Any thoughts?
I do, and actually, as Pinkesh was talking about these personas, in my world, we have probably dozens of different people who use our application. There's shipping clerks, there are directors of transportation, there's finance people, purchasing people. And I think the key thing is to make sure that you know who those personas are and what your application or your product's doing to provide value to them. And I think that's where the complexity gets in, because now you got to worry about, do I worry and satisfy that director of logistics with maybe some very cool and insightful analytic application that's kind of hard to build and takes a while, or do I really go for where we squeeze return on investment with a shipping clerk and automate that function, right? So we end up making trade-offs between the roles of your persona too.
Yeah, absolutely.
One question here.
Sure.
So we understand that we need to have a primary persona whom we are actually targeting in our release. But who decides and how we decide who will be going to be our primary persona?
Great question.
Yeah, great question. So I don't know, maybe I'll jump in. So who decides is a function of now who is in charge of the product strategy, right? Or who's in charge of the product. In a startup, usually everybody is a product manager, in my opinion, because product management as a process is different than product manager as a role. And I think this is one fundamental mistake that I think a lot of startups make, a lot of large companies make sometimes. The engineering guys wash off the hands and say, well, hang on, I'm just quality code on time. Right? If you think about it, I've been an engineering manager before, and the only way I get measured is, did I deliver before March 31st that I promised? Yes, 4 hours before March 31st, I delivered. Second, is the quality defined by less than severity 1, 5% less than 5% severity 1 bugs in my system. Yes, I did that. Well, we're good to go. Let's release, right? And that's how I'm being measured as an engineering manager. So in a startup, you don't have this issue as much because there's a small team. There's not a whole lot of multifunction department. But at the end of the day, somebody has to play the role of product management. And maybe he's not called a product manager. Maybe he's called the CEO. So most CEOs are super PMs, actually, if you think about it. But somebody has to make that call. And whether others like it or not, you have to bet on something. But not betting on, again, is the same thing. Right? You prioritize on nothing, and so everything must be important. So you got to have a plan, and maybe that plan fails, and the next release you fix it. The next module you fix it. There's got to be somebody, and usually that's the product manager. So again, the question goes back to the release.
I'll just repeat the question for 2 seconds. So, are there any parameters based on which you decide the primary persona for a release?
So my quick comment, and maybe I'm sure you have because you have multiple personas in your world that will confuse this even further. But the most important thing is, what is the objective of the release? Are you trying to acquire more customers? Are you trying to keep the existing customers? Are you trying to make this a lot more competitively relevant? Maybe you've fallen behind and your customers are saying, I like your product, I like your usability, but boy, I wish you had this feature. Are you trying to improve the cost, internal operation cost, support cost of your product? Especially in B2B, this is very important because the cost of supporting your product itself is sometimes so big that a small tweak you make can save you millions, even though you don't sell any more copy of it, right? So the driver for the release is going to be the first filter for you to say, okay, and within that driver, who's the right persona, right? So, you know, a good example that I like to give is this: the iPad is a phenomenal product, right? I mean, I'm sure a lot of you are using it now. Some of you have used it, seen it before. My 7-year-old has hijacked the iPad at the house, right? Now, Steve Jobs probably, or whoever was the product manager, probably did not think of my 7-year-old as a persona, right? It was kind of probably built for somebody like you and me.
Did you teach your 7-year-old Apple a day?
Did we say what? No, yeah, nice, nice. That's below the belt. So the important thing here is that while other personas will also like and gravitate towards your product, and that will confuse you even further that, okay, looks like everybody's liking my product, at the end of the day, there has to be one persona that you go after, and you take others with a kind of ride along as much as you can. Right?
I think that's really where I'd emphasize, too, is that you got to pick. You know, you're not doing your job if you don't make those prioritization decisions. And that means you're going to pick winners and losers for a given release or for even maybe several years. And so the danger that I see in a lot of companies is that they try and do too many things at once, and then they do them all relatively poorly. And you know, we heard that in the plenary session this morning, and I just really reemphasize that. So the question isn't which persona to go after in a release. It has to mirror what your product strategy is and where do you want to take that product, and then the person who is your target user and your target buyer, that, you know, that's the guy that you got to prioritize. And when you get wickedly good and you're market leader at that, then you move on to the next guy. You know, and that's really the way to do it. Now, one other thing that you said that I think is really cool is that you do got to recognize, except for consumer products, that in an enterprise space, your buyer is not the same as your users most of the time. And now you got some nuance to your prioritization because you have to build product that's attractive enough to the guy who's buying it so that you can get those funds loosened up and actually make a sale, even though those things may not directly contribute to the productivity or the value add at that end user. And so that's where you're consciously making a decision to kind of bifurcate your resources a bit.
Great point. How many of you attended the Tim Parsi talk in the morning? Great. So he talks about the REM method of design, right? I guess you have to appeal to whatever, emotionally appeal to the buyer and be meaningful to the user.
Yeah.
In some way. Anyway, so going along, I'll take up Pinkesh on the point of, and Chris on the point of doing too many things or doing, you know, trying to please everybody and so on. Now, generally, a lot of companies in their early stages of growth do not think product management is necessarily an identified role. Maybe they may not have a person for it. How many of you around in this room have startups that don't yet have a product manager? Okay, great. Is the most dominant reason one that you cannot afford a product manager? Yeah, I see some heads nodding. Okay, great. So our next question exactly is focused on that. If you cannot afford a product manager, what do you do? Sure.
Good point.
Pinkesh, that's one straight up your alley. He's an expert on that.
Well, I think all of us are collectively experts at it, is because the product management is more of an art and a science, right? There is no, there's a reason why, you know, technically speaking, there is not an MBA college that specializes in product management, at least yet, right? Because it's it's a combination of many skills in many areas. Probably, so I'll just give you a quick version of it, and if there's more questions and interest, maybe we can save some time at the end, right? So, very simply put, product management process is really about the value journey. And the value journey can be identified in 5 easy steps, right? One is understanding the value, which is, you know, who is it for? What does the customer really care for? Is this a real problem to even go solve? Are people willing to even pay for the problem? A lot of people will complain about a problem, but the moment you present a solution and the high price tag that will come with it, half of them will shy down saying, well, you know what, I think it's a great solution, but I don't think I can afford it. So willingness to pay and ability to pay are two very different things, as I think most of us know. So all of that is understanding the value. The second part is creating value. So now, can you build a product like iPhone or an iPad with the right, aesthetics, with the right appeal, with the right functionality, at the right quality, at the right time, with the right resources, at the right budget? A lot of factors that go in creating that value, right? The third is your, monetizing that value or capturing that value. So the pricing, the packaging, how do you, the whole world of freemium in the cloud computing is just a very interesting way of how people have said, you know what, it's free and it's free forever. So we'll monetize it if and when the customer feels like they're truly delighted, want to move up, right? Very interesting way of doing things. Try that with an enterprise product. I don't think you guys have freemium, do you?
Actually, we do.
Oh, wow. You're way up the curve then.
We don't call it freemium, but I think the point really is good in that you can monetize or commercialize different ways.
Yeah.
So we are in the cloud. It's a software as a service. There's subscriptions, and then there's people who do transactions for free. Like they book transportation with a carrier. Yeah. It's actually the carrier that pays for the booking.
That's right. Who's paying for it?
And so I think that's one of the other interesting things that product management does is identify who's that target market, how does it work, who are the constituents in that market, and then how do you monetize that, right? I heard at one of the other sessions, one of the other breakouts, there was somebody had asked, I've got this really great product, we haven't figured out how to commercialize it, would you guys fund us? And, the answer was no. But, I mean, the thing is you got to figure this stuff out, and that's where product management, one of the aspects of it.
Boards and SMSs and social media updates, right? It is a whole communication of value. And finally, the most important one is the delivering of the value. I mean, you can have a great interface at Flipkart and you find the right product at the right price and all that, but the moment you say next, add it to the cart and go to the shopping, the credit card engine, kind of breaks down. I don't know if that happens to you guys. It happens to me with Indian e-commerce providers a lot. So it's not arguably your fault if you're part of Flipkart. It's the third-party credit card verification agency, but that's part of delivering value. The end customer, your product is faulty, your delight is lost, so the delivering value is the last part. So somebody who manages this value journey in a nutshell is a product manager.
So
does that make sense?
On that note, it's kind of important that the product managers get a sense of how is the business really going to make money. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So even if you can't afford product managers today, you got to figure out, do you have a product management oriented thinking in the company, and all the other stuff that you should do.
Yeah.
Because one of the points Pinkesh makes is if you don't have product managers today, you're going to pay in other ways.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you're just deferring the cost. Honestly, it's a deferral EMI mode of paying. You think you're saving some now, but you'll end up. Now, what I mean by that is it doesn't mean that you have to have a dedicated product manager whose business card reads as a product manager. Somebody who's exercising the product management journey, the value journey, is also a product manager. Maybe they're called a CTO in the organization. Maybe that's the founder. Maybe it's the chief support engineer, whatever you end up calling this guy. But somebody needs to keep their eyes across that value journey, because otherwise every other department is only focused on one at a time. So the creating value, the engineering guys are just focused on that. The communicating value, just the marketing guys are just focused on that piece. So somebody needs to orchestrate this process, and that could be you. You don't have to be called a product manager. But somebody needs to do that function is the key point. I think we talked about this. Every CEO is a super PM. I think those who are in that seat know this very well. Or whether you realize or not, you definitely are a product manager. You're making decisions about the life and death of your product, of your strategy, of your overall direction. The other thing that a lot of companies who do not have product managers, my recommendation is that you understand at least the productizing process, which I think the gentleman, perfect timing by the way, and that was not a paid question, just in case you guys are wondering that the perfect timing of this. The productizing process, at least there should be agreement in the company that, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're not going to spend time doing market research. For whatever reason, as a company, as a startup, we've decided not to do it. That's okay. Not advisable, but that's okay. At least have some agreement on where you want to spend that time. and then divide up that labor across the team. Right? That's also fine. You don't have to have a dedicated product manager if you can't afford one at the moment, or if you can't find the skill set in the market. But having that understanding so that somebody is not missing the pieces of the puzzle is a critical thing when you can't afford one. And then the last one is, again, bring personas in the conversation. I'll tell you, instead of talking more on this topic, I'll just give you a story. This was about 6 years ago. We were doing a partnership with Microsoft. Anybody from Microsoft here? Okay, good. So we can speak whatever we want to speak about Microsoft. Right? So this is actually one of the positive things about Microsoft, by the way, for a change, right? So
I think we're on tape.
I think we're on tape. Yeah, I just realized that. Yeah.
We started with Flipkart. We went to Microsoft.
That's right. That's right.
Let's see what's more in store.
So what happened is we were discussing with the product management team and the engineering folks in the Microsoft in the Seattle office, and we were doing some partnership where we wanted to build a joint product. And so in the discussion, the guy on the table says, well, I think this is a great idea, Pinkesh, but Susie will not, buy this. This is not Susie will not accept this, or Susie is not going to like this way of doing it. And so I said, okay, it's Microsoft. I'm there for the second time, so I don't want to sound obnoxious. So we move on. The discussion goes on for another 5 minutes. And then another gentleman brings up again, so that is exactly, I think, what Susie is going to like or accept. And at this point, I lose patience. Usually, I'm an impatient guy. Usually, all product managers are impatient, by the way. I walk around, I look around the table. There's no Susie in the room. So I say, are we waiting for a Susie to come join the conversation? Because we can wait, and then we can have this discussion carry forward. And everybody starts laughing at this point. Right? And I'm realizing, what did I do? I mean, yes, I have a funny face, but why now? I mean, that funny face was the same funny face in the morning. They all laughed and said, oh, sorry, we forgot to tell you, Susie is our persona. Susie is the name of our persona, an internal persona that all of us, including the engineering guys, are just accustomed to use in the conversation. What will the customer think about this? Now think about this. This is amazing. In a room where a bunch of engineering guys, not even product manager guys, are asking the question, what will my customer think about it? So A, they understand what the customer even looks like. I mean, you can say how many engineering teams in the company, in the world actually, you don't have to raise your hands. You can ask those questions to your own teams. And two, they are bringing this context into a normal conversation while we are still brainstorming on which features to prioritize. Now this is the level of customer intimacy that we're talking about, right? So bring this is actually a very brilliant idea. Bring this persona into conversations. And you're essentially doing the job of a product manager. Product manager at the end of the day, another definition is you bring the customer context into the company. That's another way of looking at a product manager, right? So there are ways to do it. Even if you can't afford it, there are ways to do it.
Great point. Do you want to add?
Yeah, I sure do. One of the jobs that I had was I helped co-found a company that was designed to do software as a service for corporate tax. And up until that point in time, the only thing I knew about tax was that I paid them. And so my whole team, the engineers, my product managers, and we all were in the same boat. So we set out to do, he has 2 kids, he has a golden retriever dog, he drives a white Toyota Corolla that's 15 years old, and this guy's hoping to someday be able to retire and buy a little vacation home. And immediately, it kind of sets that picture in your mind, and you know, this guy is not a technology whiz. This guy's not going to be impressed by graphics. This guy's all about the numbers, the accuracy, and the veracity of the audit trail. And this stuff really drives it to home. And so with this whole notion about, can't afford a product manager, I'd say it's actually the other way around. You cannot afford not to have product management. And so, it's the PM and what his title is, it really doesn't matter. It's a matter of doing the functions that are required for product management. I think, in addition to the material that Pinkesh has, which I think is excellent, there's also a company called Pragmatic Marketing. Never affiliated with them. I haven't actually used them, but if you go to their website, they have a really marvelous picture that shows you a very scary diagram of about the 42 functions that product management really is responsible for completing. But it gives you a good roadmap for how that stuff works. And so, I think everything that your developers do need to convey value to your end users. And so product management really is, helping you make sure that that happens. And I think actually, did I only have 2 bullets on here? No way. Oh yeah. So the last one, if it's important, you got to measure it, right? So this gets back to that point you made a little bit earlier about, how much process do you have, and do you get formal, or do you just kind of do stuff and not get too formal? Well, I'm a firm believer that if it's important, you need to measure it so that you can see. And you don't have to get overly elaborate with it, but you do want to kind of track where you're going. And there's, lots of different ways to do this, but I think, measuring how well a product satisfies customer requirements is one good way to do it. Measuring revenue, of course, is another thing that you want your product management organization to be responsible. Customer satisfaction, and then market share. All those kinds of things are good indicators that you're either on the right track or maybe not.
Great points. Thanks.
I have a question here.
Go ahead.
So, I understand.
Can you speak closer to the mic?
Yeah, I was just going through bringing in personas for a conversation and stuff like that. So, for a product manager, so it's important to understand his domain. So, do you think if I need to hire a product manager for my company, he needs to be in my domain, or can I hire a product manager who has done product management for a long time but never be in my domain?
Can I ask a quick question just to clarify, given you're talking about your domain? What's your domain?
Productivity, mobile apps.
Okay, mobile apps. Oh, all right. You guys want to?
You want to?
Yeah, sure. So I think the answer is the same no matter what domain you're in. You got a problem, and it's a common problem. Every one of you are going to run into this. Product management is a separate discipline. There are techniques, there are tricks, there's things that you do when you know how to do product management that other people don't know how to do. And so that's the skill that you're hiring from a product management perspective. The domain expertise is also critical to your success. Now, the question becomes, which one can you more easily teach, right? Or do you build teams that have combinations of these? So I've seen both models work effectively. In the tax arena, what we did is we had subject matter experts, and those people were really subject matter experts that went out and they wrote white papers for us, and they interacted with the community, and then they helped the product managers do their job. I saw the same thing happen in a greenhouse gas emission company that I worked at, C3, energy management. Very, very detailed science that most people take a lifetime to learn. Those guys don't know anything about value to the customer and about prioritization of roadmap and those kinds of things. And so you need both of those on your team. So one model is you have subject matter experts and then product managers that are well disciplined. The other one is you hire smart people, which is always a good idea, and then you have them learn as they go, and there you're taking advantage of your market and your close customers and that kind of thing too. So there's a number of ways you can solve the problem. I think the first thing is that you recognize that there is one, and then you get creative about how you do it cost effectively.
So, as a hiring manager, and I don't know if you were asking this as a hiring manager or as one who wants to become a product manager.
I am a product manager myself, and I'm planning to hire another product manager for my. Yeah.
Okay, so you're kind of both, A and B, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So as a hiring manager, the common practice that we've used when we build teams and when we hire product managers is really 3 things. I mean, if you pare it down, all things being equal, you pare it down to 3 things. One is your domain expertise. Second is your functional expertise, right? Do you know how to do pricing and packaging? It's easy to say we're going to do a subscription, but that takes time to figure out how to optimize every band of that user base or bandwidth or usage, or what are the metrics to even capture that value or monetize. Market research, customer insights, research methodologies. There's a lot of functional skills. So domain expertise, functional skills, and third is your leadership skills. This is extremely important. Do you have the soft skills to go around the organization and make people kind of follow you even though they don't report to you? This is a tough role to play. The CEO is actually an easy role to play. No offense to all the CEOs sitting here. But at the end of the day, the CEO can say, look, this is what we're going to do, and you either join me in my journey or find another job. You can slap him around and just get him out of the door. As a product manager, you can't. The engineering guy is, by the way, in general, in a large company, at least 3 levels of more gray hair than you. And yet you're asking him and his merry men of 250 engineers to dance on your tune. Now that's a lot of soft skills. That's a lot of negotiation skills, a lot of leadership skills, a lot of influence building skills, a lot of credibility building skills. There's a lot of leadership skills necessary. So all 3 are equal. Now it would be great if we had all product managers score an A+ on all 3, but they don't. So now the second question is, it's a team sport. So if you already have domain expertise complemented, as he said, in other parts of the organization, maybe your next hire of product manager should be in the other 2 skills. Somebody who's very strong on the functional space, somebody who's very strong on the leadership skills. If you're missing the domain expertise, maybe rough on the edges, he's not as good of a social networker, and maybe he doesn't know how to present very well, but he's great at this mobility, and he understands the ice cream sandwich and the jelly beans and all that good stuff that happens in an Android so well that you probably want to hire him, right? So it's a combination of what's missing in your team. But usually, in the ideal world, you want all 3 in every product manager.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? We've just crossed halfway through the session. I wanted to take a quick, sorry, you had a question? Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. 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 So I don't know if everybody heard.
Hear the question?
Yeah. So
So his question is, can you work with multiple personas at the same time for a given release? I'm assuming.
So can you? His answer is yes. Should you? Is another question. And not to point words, but I'm just being very clear, right? So
we just did a killjoy of him.
No, seriously. That's right. At the end of the day, there's reality that rubber meets the road. So the key question now is that if one persona is not enough for you to ultimately achieve your goal, and the goal could be, I need to create $100,000 of additional sale for this product in next quarter. That's a goal. It's a very discrete goal, going back to Chris's metrics way of looking at it. That's a metric. Now, in order to achieve that metric, turns out that one persona pleasing is not enough. You also want this regulatory persona to influence the decision, and without these 2 guys signing off on the check, you are not getting it. If that's the case, absolutely you have to focus on both personas. Might not, exactly. And there are several cases. In the B2B space, this is even more popular, where we've had a portion of our business, as you know, in McAfee, is all B2B, and the user is loving your product, loves it, the usability, the user experience, the feature set, but the buyer asks a very simple question. Do you have a 24/7 support in my country? If not, I'm not buying this product. What? Really? The product is awesome. Your users are giving 2 thumbs up. This is like the best in class. All competitive sheets that you created internally says that this is the #1, where the #2 vendor is like distant, far away. But to the buyer, all that is not important. He is looking at his night's sleep. He doesn't want to wake up in the middle of the night if your product fails and there is no good replacement option or support option. That's an important persona to please. So your product, don't think as product as just features. Think of it as other offerings that appeal to these multiple personas. So, you would argue that support is not a feature. It very well is a feature. At the end of the day, that is what the product is getting accepted as a complete package of things, right? So you absolutely have to take care, yeah?
So talking of these features specifically, we wanted to get a little deeper into what does a feature really mean, right? What's the complete feature, so to say, if it was to be called a release or a release by any other name? Chris, do you want to take a stab at it?
The answer to this one is really, really hard because it's going to be very different for the different types of products and the environments that you're working in and all those good things. And you know, I think that at the end of the day, the one thing that I can say that's in common for all of them is you kind of got to get in the head of who that end user is. I had an example at one of my with one of my products where there was a specific feature that had 4 pieces to it. You know, it's kind of one of these reporting things where there was a header and a detail, and they wanted 2 things at the header and 2 things at the detail. And the reality was what the customer really wanted was that last answer on the detail thing. What engineering built were the first other 3. And so we delivered it, and the customer...
Equipment where the door is going to fall off, right? You know, if you were a, you know, no offense to anybody from Yahoo or Google here? Okay, no, oh, well, okay, so you got to be careful.
There's Yahoo people here.
Yeah. So if you're one of those online properties...
Does ex-Yahoo also count?
Yeah, exactly, you're right, ex-Yahoo.
Google.
Ex-Yahoo and ex-Google, that's right, our Sanjay is from Google. So if you're in the online space, in the online property space where, you know what, let's say there is a portal that serves you political news every Monday morning on what's kind of hot and sizzling in India. Now, you know what, one bad story or one framing error on these, where you released the product, where you thought it is done, and it kind of messes up your screen, it's not the end of the world, right? So now the impact of what happens when you say you are done, from a customer viewpoint done, is really the factor in deciding what internal processes should you have. And this goes back to the question of, you know, how much process is too much process? You know, if you follow some of the Eric Ries, has everybody heard about lean startups, lean methodology? Yeah, some of you? So Eric Ries goes on the record as extreme as, in my opinion extreme, my personal opinion extreme, is you code, as long as it compiles, you commit, and you release. Now, there's a little problem with this, right? I mean, it's just a small little problem, is that sometimes the customers are not in permanent beta to always just take your code and just test it out and then report back what the issue is and then you go fix it. Right? Some customers are not as forgiving as you might think. You know, and that goes in the spectrum, even in the B2C space. It's not like the consumers of an online property are all guinea pigs where you just throw stuff at them. The first 50 people will report the problem and then you'll fix it for the next 8 million, right? I mean, it's not really advisable to do so, although a lot of people sometimes, you know, try to do that. So, you know, what is done is in the context not so much of what your engineering guys say it's done, your internal QA guy says it's done, or your product owner, for those who you follow Agile, you know, there's a concept of user stories, right? We create user stories, and each story has an acceptance criteria. If you follow the truest form of Agile, and the acceptance criteria is very clear. If you pass this test, we're done. You know, we accept this story. So it's not about all those. It's what about your average persona, again, going back to the customer, and what do they think is acceptable? You know, how forgiving are they? Is really critical to important when you say you're done. The other thing is you test early and you test often. This is one of the Agile philosophies again, right? Very useful. In the waterfall days, you know, this was a little tough to do because you can't really test that early and test that often. You have to wait till the monolithic stack kind of assembles at least 80% of it and then you test it. In the Agile world, you can.
I just want to ask the audience at this point in time. Of all of you people who are building products, how many of you actually follow Agile? That's a pretty good lot.
Okay. Pretty good size, yeah. So I think you guys are already doing some good stuff inherently because what Agile gives you, right? So it kind of forces you to test early and test often. Yeah, so I think that's about it. I mean, I wish there was a blanket answer to all segments and all companies, but really at the end of the day, if a customer feels like this is acceptable, and maybe you do a limited release, right? So some companies are always in permanent beta. I don't know if you know, but Gmail was in beta for 7 years, right? And by the way, pretty good stuff. It's not like they're throwing crap at you and wanting you to test. Sanjay is, you know, giggling there because you know, he was at Google when that beta thing happened. You know, in some companies like B2B, you do a limited release. So you only ship this software or this device or this widget to maybe the first 100 customers, test it, see how the adoption is for 2 months, and then roll it out to the rest of the world. In fact, we did this quite a few times in McAfee because in our world, in the antivirus world, at least, when we update signatures, and if something is wrong, we once knocked down some 800,000 laptops in one company because they all got updated with the new virus signature, and the virus signature had one little fault, and it says, every time Office starts up, shut it down, because it was tagged as malware, right? Now, that's a big oops. It's not just a small oops. I mean, we're talking 800 people not working for 2.5 days, in one company, and fortunately, we had a limited release. So only few clients got disrupted this way before the, half the continent who uses McAfee antivirus could have been, incapacitated, right? So it's very important.
And I think the other thing about that, too, that I'd reiterate is that it really depends on the scope of what you're looking at, too, right? So one way to think about products is that they're never done, right? Your features are really never done, because as soon as you complete it, you take it to market, and people see that it's worthwhile and valuable, you're going to get competitors, and they're going to do it, too. And so now you need to either innovate and keep moving ahead with newer features or better, more streamlined ways to do it, streamlined ways to implement or to access or whatever the thing is, right? Because as soon as Gmail comes out, then there's Yahoo Mail and there's Microsoft Mail and all the rest of these things too. And so you're really never done on a feature. So that what that means is that the key thing is you look at the lifetime, and in that short term, how much is enough of what you can develop before it really makes sense to pass that along to the users.
Or if you're doing a hardware device, you could secretly go and lose it in a pub and come back.
I think I see some experience, historical experience of doing that in your giggle.
We look for lost devices.
That's right. That's right.
So did people at the back hear the question? The question was, how do I pick a persona, having talked about personas for so much? How do I pick a persona? And if I have to switch, can I go back and switch personas, right? Between switching features versus switching personas. You get 30 seconds.
So I'll answer the easy one. Yes, you can switch personas.
That is great.
I was hoping the hard one is something that Chris can answer.
I'll take the hard one.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Moore, the bowling pin strategy. I mean, that's, if you've heard of Jeffrey Moore, he's a consultant. Really, he's got a series of books. They're really, really quite good. Bowling pin strategy. You think of bowling, right? Everyone's got the pin in the front. The idea is you knock that one down, and then it knocks the next ones down in the row. And your selection of personas should have the same kind of strategy associated with it. So one really cool thing to do is you draw, if you're doing an enterprise thing or even a consumer thing, you draw spheres of influence and the relationships of these guys, right? So in a consumer market, you want to say, if I get this kind of person, what's his or her sphere of influence, and who is he or she going to convince to now buy my product too? In an organization or enterprise setting, you got the case of, if I've got a certain job title, like the VP of Transportation, who does he influence? He influences the purchasing agent and the CFO. So if I'm trying to get to these other ones, I want to select by strategy and figuring out who's that first one that's likely I can reach, and then how am I going to use that reach to then go off and extend into the next ones. I love that strategy. Thanks for the question.
Industry standard product management certifications.
So that is also not a paid question.
Okay, fine.
But I love these questions. Love these questions. So yes, there is called AIPMM, Association of International Product Management and Product Marketing. AIPMM. So we can talk offline if you're interested, but you can do a quick Google search on it. They're like the Chartered Accountant Board of India, right? So you can learn from wherever you want, but you have to take one board exam to take that CA, to get the CA certificate. So similarly, there is one. Yeah.
Go to the next one. Yeah.
I'll repeat my question. What is the demarcation line between the role of a business analyst and a product manager in a product development environment? Second thing, in service, there's a common phrase that build your solution like a product and sell it like a service. So how do you see it fitting in the product management context?
I like the second one. Say that again. Build. What is it? Build.
Build your solution like a product and sell it like a service.
Okay, that's pretty
Big
interesting.
question.
Yeah, very good question. Very good observation. I think we should give the best question, or at least one of the best questions of the award. Sure. The demarcation, especially in India, this is even more clear than it is in the Valley. In Valley, we don't have a whole lot of business analysts per se, right? I mean, would you agree?
You see the business analyst at the using organization, the product managers at the supplying organization. That's one way I would think about it.
Yeah, agreed. So in India, we see more of this, and we've studied them quite a bit. And so my crisp answer in 30 seconds, because he's got the timer on me now, is the business analyst is somebody who is looking at, if you remember the value journey, he is more involved in the creating value. He is taking the requirements from that user, translating it back for the engineering guys to go build it in a way that the engineering team or the construction guys, it could be engineering guy, you could be building a real estate, you could be building a pharma molecule, right? Whoever is constructing stuff, can you translate it for them? A product manager is a lot more strategic role. So that is one of the subsets of what a product manager would do, but there's a lot more, as you realize in the journey. So usually most business analysts end up evolving to a product manager. And there are hundreds of cases in India that have kind of gone through this now. Yeah.
You want to go ahead? Hi. So I'm more fundamental. Yep.
So second.
Okay. 3 minutes. Okay, cool. Sorry, guys.
So maybe in the interest of time, we'll have some more questions. We can talk offline.
So closing thoughts, Chris.
I thought we were going to take one last question from him, no? I already promised, so I'll look bad otherwise.
That's a big challenge product managers always run.
That's right. You overpromise. Yes, that's true.
So I have a fundamental question, and I believe there are several product managers or budding product managers here. So let's say the startup gets the money and they have enough money to hire a product manager. And I joined that company as a product manager. What should be the 3 things, and I believe we like 3 bullets, so I'm asking 3 things that he should do in the first 90 days maybe.
Good one.
Should I try?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I can keep it quick. Make sure you know everybody in the team. Make sure you understand what customer segment they're going after. Make sure you spend a lot of time with them having beers outside.
That's very important. The last part is especially important, right? Because for you to be effective in that organization, you really need to leverage the resources that you have, the assets that you have in that organization. Now, this is one thing that, it's extremely important to understand. Whether you're a Cisco guy or a Google guy or a very small startup with 4 people in it, one of the fundamental skill that a product management guy needs to develop is to leverage the assets. You can't argue and complain that, well, he's got a team of 80 engineers and I only got 4. How in earth am I going to compete with that? You've got assets called agility that the big company probably does not. Vice versa. If I'm in a big company, so just coming from a big company like McAfee, our #1 slide when we go talk to pitch and when we teach our sales guys is to scare people about never to buy from startups. I mean, I got to leverage my own asset that I have called the big McAfee or the big IBM, and we say, you know what, do you want to use a solution that has been tested in 80,000 clients, or do you want to bank on a startup that you might not last for 80 days from today? What do you want to do? Now, what is this? This is basically leveraging. Now, I can't say I have more features because I don't. The startup has 6 times more features than I do, but you have to leverage the assets that you hold. That is a key skill that every product manager needs to know and understand. Whether you're a large company or a big company, B2C or a B2B, doesn't matter.
Great point. Thanks. And closing thoughts? Chris?
So my closing thoughts, #1 to the answer of your question here, first thing I do is make sure that the CEO, the VP of sales, the VP of marketing, and your engineering lead can give you a 3-minute description of what you guys are building. If they cannot